And it's very important to point out we're now in the month of Adar. Adar is a month of joy. The Talmud says when Adar comes in, we increase in joy. And Teruma is the first parsha we read in the month of Adar this year. And of course, Teruma is telling us the secret to joy. The secret to joy is giving. It's giving that evokes a sense of abundance in ourselves. It is giving that gives us a true satisfaction. If you have a piece of bread and you eat it, so you'll have satisfaction for 10 minutes, maybe for an hour, if you count the hours of time that you use the energy, perhaps half a day. And yet, if you stretch back and recall a time that you gave someone else a piece of bread, that memory and sense of having been able to share with someone else, you value and are able to savor for many, many years. So this idea of joy and giving with joy, indeed the Khatam Sofer connects it as well as the same question, why does it say, you will take from me teruma? He puts a slightly different twist on it. He says that the teruma represents using our property in a way that the Torah says. Everything we have is to serve God. So our property is also to serve God. How do we use our property to serve God? Primarily through giving tzedakah, charity. Now, the prophets, it says, God tells us, li hakesef, li hazav. To me is the gold, to me is the silver. Everything belongs to God. So indeed, it's not truly our property, but it is entrusted to us. We are stewards. We are custodians of this wealth. When do we say this? When we're doing what the custodianship, what the trust involves. Then it becomes ours. We're in charge of it. But if we abuse that trust, then it's taken away. And hence, teruma, giving the gift, is how we take it, because teruma shows that we're using our property in consonance with the divine will and the divine plan, and hence at that moment it goes into our own possession. Compared to the idea of the brachot, it says that one verse says that everything belongs to God. It says in the Psalms, another psalm says, the heavens belong to God, the earth was given to man. Well, we just said the whole earth belongs to God as well. So the Talmud says, one is before we make the blessing, and one is after we make the blessing. The reference is to the blessings of benefit over food. When we say that blessing, we declare that we're aware that everything belongs to God. And here there's an irony, a kind of a paradox, that at that moment it becomes ours. Our realization that it's not truly ours, that it's truly God's, then it moves into our possession as well. And the same thing is true about giving and tzedakah. It is the use of our money to perform the mitzvah of charity that actually moves that money into our own possession. And that is why the Pirkei Avot says, Tein lo mishalo, give him what is his, because you and everything that belongs to you really belongs to God. And so when we give charity, which is a fulfillment of the commandment of God, which is like giving money to God, we're giving it back to God. There's a story of a wealthy chassid of a famous rebbe called Avram Yeshua Shefel, the Apter Rav, and he wrote him a letter that says, you must give 200 rubles to this cause. There was another individual who was having hard times, and although in general this chassid did give, now he was having hard times. It did not seem like it was such an urgent matter. But shortly thereafter, he went bankrupt. He went to his rebbe and he cried. He said, I understand the connection here. I didn't do the mitzvah properly, but why was the consequence so severe? Why was I punished this way? So the Apter Rebbe says, you weren't punished. There was no punishment here. Let me explain. In fact, nothing that belonged to you was taken from you. The reality is when my soul came to earth, there was a certain amount of money and material resources that were allotted for me to use in my work to help other people. But after all, I can't really do a lot of business. I have to study, I have to daven, I have to help people and teach Torah. So Hashem took this money and placed it in the hands of a number of different, in quotation marks, bankers, people who are supposed to manage it for me and recognize their obligation to support the work that I do. So you have an account. God put this money in your account. Of course, you need some of it also. When you didn't manage the account properly, so God took the account and he transferred it to another banker. And that is in fact what we're all going through with the money that we have. God is waiting to see that we dispose of it properly. And this is what the Chatam Sofer says. And he gives a beautiful explanation. We find out, as I say, the half shekel tax is alluded to in this week's Parsha, because it says at the very beginning that we should collect gold, silver, and brass. And although gold and brass is found to be amongst the materials used in the Mishkan, Rashi points out that silver is not. And so the silver refers to the Teruma, the gift of the half shekel. Now when God gives this commandment to Moshe didn't understand it. There's several places in the Torah, Rashi says, Moshe didn't understand a certain commandment, and God demonstrated it for him. Sometimes it's obvious why this is the case. For example, when he was told about to sanctify the new moon, it says he had difficulty with it. I mean, is a new moon this much, this much? So God showed him what a new moon looks like, how much of a sliver of the new moon there needs to be in order to declare a new month. But why would he have had a problem understanding the gift of the half shekel? The Chatan Sofer gives a brilliant explanation. He says the problem with the half shekel is that everybody gives the same amount. The rich don't add, the poor don't take away. Is not the purpose of charity to give as much as you can? And so God shows him, the Midrash tells us, a fiery coin, a coin in the sky, in a prophecy, which is burning on fire. What is he trying to say? It's not the amount of money that you give. Why not? Because in fact, when we give charity, we're not giving money. We can't give money because we never had money. It's not ours to give. It's God's. He places it in our trust. What can we give? We can give the joy that we feel in being able to help somebody else. We can give the love that we have for others and the love for God. And hence the Chatan Sofer explains, God is trying to tell us that the sense of love and joy in giving is absolutely essential to fulfilling the commandment of charity. Why? Because there can only be two things you're giving. Either you're giving the money to someone, or you're feeling a sense of joy and doing it with simcha. So giving the money you're not giving. You're giving money that was never yours to start with. If you don't have the joy at least, then really you don't have anything. And hence he says an interesting kind of a play on words, because it says at the beginning, collect these gifts for each one who his heart moves him to give. But in Hebrew it can also be read from each one who gives over his heart. That when we give, we have to be giving our heart at the same time. At the same time, it isn't necessary to point out, especially regarding charity, where the gift will benefit the poor individual, even if we don't have the proper attitude. The Torah and Talmud go to great lengths to tell us that we must give even if we don't feel that sense of enthusiasm at first. We have to force ourselves in order to make sure that those who are in need get what they need. And actually, to the extent that the Talmud says one who loses a coin doesn't realize it, the coin is later found by a poor person. So we say that individual who lost it does get the merit of the charity. It's almost the opposite thing. There is no joy there. But even then, why? Because tzedakah, charity, is a special case where the goal of the tzedakah vis-a-vis the poor person is fulfilled even if we don't feel it. And yet, as we said before, after a person starts to give, it's like a bug, you know. You can't get enough, you love it, and it brings you this enormous joy. And so, tzedakah is a special mitzvah that we are really taking when we are giving, and it's not only a sense of satisfaction, it's not only a sense of joy. What's radical here is the Torah tells us that we actually get paid back. The investment of charity comes back to us with material welfare. The word for tithing, giving a tenth, is ma'aser, which contains the shoresh, the root, ayin, sin, reish, which can also mean wealth. And so there is a interpretation of the sages. It says aser to aser. Why does it say twice tithe? You shall tithe, you shall give a tenth. And it says the second one is hinting, tithe and you'll become rich. You want to become rich? Give charity. That's the way to make a lot of money. And as a matter of fact, this interpretation was said by Rabbi Yochanan to the son of Reish Lakish, who was studying that day, aser to aser, tithe shall you tithe. So he explained to him, that means you'll become rich when you give charity. So the boy says to him, what's the proof of it? It's a good point. I mean, you have an interpretation of a verse. What's the proof? So Rabbi Yochanan says to him, try it, test it. Now the boy was very clever, and he says, this is late to nasun that Shem Elokechem. You're not allowed to test the Lord your God. So Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Hoshaya, you're not allowed to test God only in this one thing. Charity, it's a special case. Because Hashem says, Bechanuni nabazot, test me in this thing. And it says in the verse, bring the whole tithe, charity, the 10th, into the storeroom, that there may be food in my house, God says, in my house. And test me now by this, said the Lord of hosts. And if you bring charity, if I will not open for you the windows of heaven and pour out for you a blessing, that there shall be more than you ever need. And that is a beautiful blessing, ad blidai in Hebrew. And so may we all give and find it in our heart to give and feel the joy in giving, and more importantly, have the response that God will open the windows of heaven and give us everything we need in every possible respect.